When American soldiers stormed beaches, crossed rivers, and advanced through forests during the Second World War, they carried with them a weapon unlike any other of its time. The M1 Garand was not just a rifle, it was a symbol of American industrial might, technological innovation, and the doctrine of overwhelming firepower that defined the U.S. Army's approach to warfare. While other nations sent their infantry into battle with bolt-action rifles designed before the First World War, the United States armed its troops with a semi-automatic weapon capable of firing 8 rounds as fast as a man could pull the trigger. This was the rifle General George S. Patton famously called the greatest battle implement ever devised. But the story of how it came to be and how it changed the balance of infantry combat began decades before a single shot was fired in anger. In the aftermath of World War I, the U.S. Army found itself equipped with vast numbers of Springfield Model 1903 bolt-action rifles. The weapon was accurate and dependable, but it reflected the tactics of trench warfare, slow, deliberate marksmanship, rather than fluid, mobile engagements. Between the wars, military thinkers began to understand that the future of combat would depend on speed and firepower. Automatic weapons like the Browning automatic rifle had shown the potential of high rates of fire, but they were heavy, costly, and not suitable as a standard infantry weapon. What the Army needed was a rifle that could combine the accuracy of a traditional bolt action with the rate of fire of an automatic weapon, without sacrificing reliability. Enter John Garand, a Canadian-born engineer who immigrated to the United States and began working for the Springfield Armory. Trained as a machinist, Garand was a meticulous, methodical designer who spent years perfecting his ideas about semi-automatic operation. He envisioned a gas-operated rifle that would harness the energy of fired cartridges to automatically chamber the next round, eliminating the need for manual bolt manipulation. The challenge lay in balancing the mechanism's complexity with the rugged simplicity required by soldiers in the field. By the late 1920s, Garand's early prototypes were beginning to attract attention. Several competing designs were being tested by the U.S. Army, including those by Pedersen and Thompson. But Garand's design stood out for its mechanical reliability and ease of manufacture. It used a gas-operated system with a rotating bolt, an elegant solution that would become a hallmark of many later firearms. The rifle fed from an internal magazine loaded with an 8-round en-bloc clip, which would automatically eject with a distinctive metallic ping after the last shot was fired. After nearly a decade of testing, redesign, and bureaucratic hesitation, the M1 Garand was officially adopted by the U.S. Army in 1936. This decision made the United States the first major power to equip its standard infantry units with a semi-automatic rifle. The scale of that achievement is often overlooked. At a time when most soldiers around the world still relied on rifles that had changed little since 1914, the adoption of the M1 represented a radical shift in military philosophy. It required enormous confidence in both the design and the industrial base that would have to produce it in vast numbers. When production began at the Springfield Armory, engineers and machinists faced immense challenges. Precision manufacturing on such a scale was unprecedented for a semi-automatic firearm. Each rifle required over 100 distinct machined parts, and tolerances had to be exact to ensure reliability. Early production runs were plagued by delays and mechanical issues. Some Army officers, skeptical of the new weapon, pushed to revert to the familiar bolt-action Springfield. But persistence and technical refinement gradually resolved these problems. By the late 1930s, production stabilized, and by the time the United States entered the Second World War, tens of thousands of M1 rifles were ready for deployment. For the soldiers who first received them, the M1 Garand represented an entirely new experience. Its semi-automatic action allowed a trained infantryman to deliver accurate fire at a rate previously impossible for a rifleman. 8 shots could be fired in rapid succession, each with the pull of a trigger, without losing sight of the target or breaking the firing position to work a bolt. In combat, this meant that American infantry could lay down a volume of fire that overwhelmed enemy units still using bolt-action weapons. The advantage was not theoretical. It was measured in lives saved and battles won. In North Africa, where American forces first entered major combat against the Axis in 1942, the Garand's superiority was immediately evident. German and Italian troops, equipped primarily with Mauser and Carcano rifles, were surprised by the sustained rate of fire American infantry could deliver. Reports from the field spoke of engagements where smaller U.S. units repelled larger enemy forces through sheer firepower. The Garand allowed soldiers to keep enemies pinned down, to react quickly to sudden attacks, and to exploit openings in ways that bolt-action rifles simply could not support. As the war moved to Europe, the Garand's reputation grew. During the brutal fighting in Sicily and Italy, American infantry learned to trust their rifles under all conditions: mud, dust, rain, or snow. The Garand's gas system, though sensitive to proper maintenance, proved resilient in the hands of disciplined soldiers. In close-quarters combat among the hedgerows of Normandy or the forests of the Ardennes, the weapon's speed of fire often meant the difference between victory and annihilation. German soldiers began referring to the rapid, rhythmic firing sound of American rifles as a sign that they were facing elite troops. The rifle's 8-round clip, often debated as both a strength and a weakness, played a defining role in its identity. Loading was fast and simple. Soldiers pressed the clip into the top of the open receiver until it locked with a sharp metallic click. Upon firing the last round, the clip would eject upward with a distinctive ping. Some myths later arose among veterans and enthusiasts that enemy soldiers learned to exploit the sound as a signal to attack while the riflemen reloaded. In truth, this was rare. In the chaos of battle, the sound was barely noticeable amid gunfire, explosions, and shouting. More often, that ping was a reassuring reminder that the weapon had functioned perfectly through another 8 rounds. In the Pacific theater, the M1 Garand faced a different kind of test. The jungles of Guadalcanal, New Guinea, and the Philippines were punishing environments for any firearm. High humidity, mud, and constant exposure to the elements corroded metal and clogged mechanisms. Yet the Garand proved remarkably resilient. U.S. Marines and soldiers found it reliable even under these extreme conditions, where the standard Japanese Arisaka bolt-action rifle was slower and less adaptable. In sudden close-range encounters common in jungle warfare, the ability to fire rapidly without cycling a bolt gave Americans a critical edge. The Garand's performance was not just about rate of fire. Its .3006 cartridge delivered substantial stopping power and accuracy at range. American infantry squads could engage targets effectively at distances up to 500 yards, and the rifle's recoil, though firm, was manageable for most soldiers. Its combination of power, speed, and reliability gave U.S. infantry an unmatched small arms capability that fundamentally shaped battlefield tactics. Whereas Axis forces often relied on machine guns to provide the bulk of their suppressive fire, American units could depend on every rifleman contributing significant firepower. This democratization of firepower redefined infantry combat. In practice, a U.S. rifle squad armed with Garands could perform tasks that elsewhere required light machine guns. It allowed for more flexible, aggressive maneuvering, and it gave junior officers and sergeants the confidence to press attacks that would have been unthinkable with slower-firing rifles. Combined with the Browning automatic rifle and the Thompson submachine gun, the M1 helped create a uniquely American balance of mobility and firepower. Behind the weapon's battlefield success stood an industrial effort that was equally extraordinary. The production of the M1 Garand became one of the defining examples of American wartime manufacturing. At its peak, the Springfield Armory and Winchester Repeating Arms produced over 5 million rifles between 1936 and 1945. Each was subjected to rigorous inspection and testing before being shipped overseas. The standardization of parts allowed for field maintenance and repairs at unprecedented efficiency. Soldiers could swap components between rifles without special fitting, a feature that made logistics far simpler in the chaos of global warfare. But success came at a cost. Early models faced criticism for weight. The rifle, at nearly 10 pounds loaded, was heavier than many of its counterparts. Some soldiers complained that its length made it cumbersome in tight quarters or dense vegetation. Yet these drawbacks were outweighed by the overwhelming advantages it conferred in open battle. Veterans frequently described the rifle as both dependable and powerful, qualities that built trust between man and machine. Many soldiers grew deeply attached to their Garands, treating them with a sense of reverence that went beyond mere utility. By 1944, the Garand had become synonymous with the American soldier. In the hedgerows of France, across the snowy forests of Belgium, and through the shattered streets of Germany, its distinctive profile appeared in countless photographs and newsreels. It was more than just a tool of war. It was a symbol of America's technological and industrial strength. The weapon's widespread use also reflected a deeper commitment to equipping every soldier with the best possible equipment, a philosophy not always shared by other nations. Even Allied troops from other nations took notice. British and Canadian soldiers who occasionally handled the Garand were impressed by its speed and balance. Soviet evaluations, though never leading to adoption, acknowledged its engineering quality. Axis forces, on the other hand, frequently scavenged captured Garands and used them when ammunition could be found, a testament to the weapon's reliability and respect on both sides of the front. As the Allied advance pushed deeper into Europe, the M1 Garand continued to prove itself indispensable. In the bitter winter of 1944-1945, during the Battle of the Bulge, freezing temperatures caused countless mechanical failures across all armies. Yet reports from American units described how the Garand, when properly cleaned and lubricated, continued to function despite snow and ice. Soldiers learned to sleep with their rifles to prevent the oil from freezing, and many credited the weapon with saving their lives in the chaos of the Ardennes. When ammunition was plentiful, entire platoons could unleash a storm of semi-automatic fire that broke German assaults before they even reached American lines. By the war's end, the M1 Garand had earned a place in the mythology of the American soldier. It was the constant companion of the infantrymen from North Africa to Okinawa, from Normandy to the Rhine. To the men who fought with it, the Garand was not just another piece of equipment. It was a trusted partner, as familiar as their helmet or boots. Many veterans later said that it gave them confidence no other rifle could provide. The weapon's reputation grew so large that it influenced American military doctrine long after the fighting stopped. When peace returned in 1945, millions of Garands were stored, refurbished, and distributed around the world. The rifle became the foundation of American post-war military aid programs, arming allies and friendly nations across Europe and Asia. From Greece to South Korea, from the Philippines to Turkey, the Garand appeared wherever U.S. influence extended. Its ruggedness and reliability made it a natural choice for rebuilding armies emerging from war or occupation. Yet the weapon's story did not end with World War II. Within 5 years, the world was again at war, this time on the Korean Peninsula. There, the M1 Garand faced its greatest trial yet. The brutal winters, mountainous terrain, and waves of Chinese infantry attacks tested both man and machine to their limits. Once again, the Garand delivered. Veterans of Korea recalled how the rifle's rapid rate of fire allowed small U.S. units to repel mass assaults that might otherwise have overrun them. The 8-round clip, though small by modern standards, could be reloaded quickly, and the weapon's accuracy allowed soldiers to engage at long distances where enemy rifles could not match their reach. In the intense fighting around the Chosin Reservoir in late 1950, temperatures dropped to levels that froze lubricants and shattered metal. Many automatic weapons jammed, but the Garand's simple gas system continued to operate when maintained with care. Marines defending the perimeter of Hagaruri used their Garands almost continuously for days, often firing hundreds of rounds through the same rifles without failure. In countless engagements, the rifle again proved that it was not just a tool of the last war, but a weapon still fully capable in the age of modern conflict. Back home, the U.S. military was already thinking about the next generation of small arms. The experience of World War II and Korea had shown that while the M1 Garand was exceptional, the nature of warfare was changing. Soldiers needed more ammunition capacity and a lighter, more compact rifle. Engineers at the Springfield Armory, building on Garand's original design, began developing what would become the M14, a select-fire rifle chambered for the same .30 caliber cartridge but with a detachable magazine. Though it would replace the M1 in active service, the new rifle owed its existence to the principles Garand had established decades earlier. John Garand himself remained a quiet, modest figure throughout his life. Despite having created one of the most influential weapons in history, he never became wealthy or famous. Working for the government, he received a regular salary but no royalties for his invention. When asked if he regretted that, he simply replied that his work had been for the country, not for profit. He retired from the Springfield Armory in 1953, still refining designs and experimenting with new mechanisms until the end of his career. To those who knew him, Garand was a perfectionist, a man who saw engineering as both science and art. He passed away in 1974, but his name endures wherever soldiers and historians speak of the M1. The legacy of the Garand rifle extends far beyond the wars in which it was used. Its mechanical design influenced generations of firearms engineers. The concept of a gas-operated rotating bolt system became the foundation for many later rifles, including the M14, the AR-10, and the iconic M16 that would define American firepower in Vietnam. Even foreign designers studied its principles. Elements of its operation appeared in weapons from Belgium, Italy, and Japan, all of which sought to replicate the balance of reliability and accuracy that the M1 had achieved. Beyond its technical legacy, the Garand shaped perceptions of American power and innovation. During World War II, the image of a U.S. soldier advancing with an M1 rifle became a potent symbol of industrial democracy overcoming tyranny. Unlike the rigidly centralized systems of its enemies, the American war machine combined individual initiative with technological superiority. The semi-automatic rifle perfectly embodied that philosophy, a weapon that empowered each individual soldier to act decisively rather than merely follow orders in formation. In the decades that followed, the Garand continued to serve in conflicts large and small. It saw action in the hands of South Korean troops during the Vietnam War, in the Middle East, and across Latin America. In some nations, it remained in service well into the 1980s. The rifle's longevity was a testament to both its durability and the foresight of its design. Civilian versions also became popular among marksmen and collectors, with the U.S. government selling surplus rifles through the Civilian Marksmanship Program. For many Americans, owning a Garand became a tangible connection to the generation that fought and won the Second World War. As time passed, myths and stories grew around the weapon. Some veterans swore that the distinctive ping of the ejected clip could be heard across battlefields. Others claimed it had frightened enemies into retreat. Historians debated its exact impact on combat outcomes, but few denied that it gave U.S. infantry an edge. Comparative studies after the war showed that American rifle squads consistently delivered higher volumes of accurate fire than their German or Japanese counterparts. That statistical advantage translated into tactical dominance across multiple theaters of war. The M1 Garand also played a role in shaping modern military training. The emphasis on marksmanship, speed, and individual initiative that characterized American infantry tactics was reinforced by the rifle's capabilities. Soldiers were trained not only to shoot accurately, but to think independently, using the weapon's rapid fire to adapt to changing battlefield conditions. The result was an army that could operate with flexibility and initiative, qualities that would remain hallmarks of U.S. forces for decades. When historians speak of the rifle that won the war, they are not merely celebrating a machine. They are recognizing how technology, doctrine, and human effort intertwined to produce victory. The M1 Garand did not single-handedly win World War II. Wars are won by logistics, strategy, and sacrifice. But it gave American soldiers a decisive tool that multiplied their effectiveness. In battle after battle, it turned the tide by allowing individuals to act with speed and confidence. The rifle's psychological impact was also immense. Soldiers knew they carried something superior, and that knowledge bred morale. In letters home, many described their pride in the weapon. One infantryman wrote from France in 1944 that the Germans have their tanks, but we have these rifles, and that's enough. Such sentiments reflected not arrogance, but faith in their equipment, their comrades, and their cause. By the 1950s, as newer rifles emerged, the Garand's active service slowly declined. Yet its influence persisted in ceremonies, parades, and historical memory. To this day, honor guards at military funerals and memorials often carry M1 Garands, polished, perfectly maintained, and firing blank salutes that echo across generations. The rifle's silhouette, with its long wooden stock and steel receiver, remains instantly recognizable, evoking an era when craftsmanship and mass production met on the battlefield. In museums and veterans halls across the United States, the Garand occupies a place of honor. Its presence tells a story, not just of innovation, but of the people who carried it through mud, snow, and blood. The same design that rolled off assembly lines in Massachusetts and Connecticut would travel across oceans, scale mountains, and liberate continents. Each rifle represented a fusion of engineering precision and human endurance, a tool that reflected the character of the nation that built it. The M1 Garand stands today as a monument to a transformative moment in military history. It bridged the gap between the slow, deliberate warfare of the early 20th century and the mechanized, fast-paced battles that would define the modern age. It demonstrated how industrial ingenuity could shape the very nature of combat, turning the individual soldier into a far more powerful force. Even in an era of digital warfare and advanced rifles, the Garand remains revered by collectors, historians, and veterans alike. Its weight, its balance, and its unmistakable sound continue to evoke the spirit of the generation that carried it to victory. The rifle was more than steel and wood. It was the embodiment of American resolve. It stood with soldiers at Normandy, at Bastogne, at Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. It endured through cold, heat, and rain, and it never failed those who relied on it. When General Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised, he was not exaggerating. The M1 Garand represented the peak of a philosophy. The technology should serve the soldier, not the other way around. It was simple enough to trust, powerful enough to dominate, and reliable enough to carry across continents. In the story of World War II, no single invention captures the essence of American victory more completely. The rifle that won the war was not just a weapon. It was a statement. It declared that industrial democracy could outthink, outproduce, and outfight tyranny. It proved that the ingenuity of one man, John Garand, could change the fate of millions. And it reminded the world that when a free people are armed with both courage and the tools of innovation, they can shape the course of history.